So this year, this last term and this term at Hartman, I have been teaching the Life and Teachings of Jesus class, which is actually maybe probably my favorite class to teach, just because, it's a wonderful opportunity to go through the life of Jesus again, and as I teach it, we teach it from a chronological perspective, so we're harmonizing the Gospels together and looking at what takes place when, but there's such treasures in the life of Jesus. Amen. And we just can never grow old of studying again and again what Jesus has done and what he has taught us. And so in our class, we're nearing the end. We're in the last week of Jesus' life. And so I thought that as I was thinking and praying about what to study here, I said, well, I'm studying this for the Life and Teachings class, so we'll just go ahead and we'll study here as well from the final events of Jesus' life. And I want to begin in Matthew 24. Matthew 24 and Matthew 25 is what we'll be looking at this for Sabbath school period. Here in Matthew 24 and 25, of course, we're very familiar, especially with Matthew 24. Matthew 24, we find the message that Jesus gives on the Mount of Olives. He has left the temple for the last time. As he's left the temple, he said, "Your house is left unto you desolate." Which, of course, was a change from what Jesus had said just about 3 days before, 2-3 days before, when he actually just 1 day before, actually, when he had driven out the money changers. And he says, "Take these things hence, make not my Father's house a house of merchandise." So on Monday morning of the Passion Week, or Monday, Jesus cleanses the temple, and he says, "Take these things away. Don't make my Father's house a house of merchandise." But then the next day, Jesus has been teaching all day. The leaders have come to him and tried to trap him in his words. And as they have gone through this day, Jesus pronounces the woes upon the Pharisees in Matthew 23. And he leaves and says, "Your house is left to you desolate." Now that was quite a transition to take place in one day, wasn't it? But when Jesus' presence left the temple, it was no longer his Father's house. And as Jesus' presence left the temple, it was now as they rejected him. And really, when Jesus left the temple, that was the end of Jesus' public ministry. And they start to retire to the Mount of Olives, or actually before they retire, there's several other things. The Greeks come to him there in the temple court in John chapter 12, and Jesus says, "And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me." As they begin to leave the temple, the disciples point to the stones. They point to the magnificent, beautiful temple and say, "Look at this temple." And Jesus said, "Not one stone is going to be left upon another." And as they continue walking, they make it out to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples come to him, and they cannot fathom how this beautiful temple, the pride and joy of the entire Jewish nation, and even of the Romans in that area, because it was such a magnificent temple. They cannot imagine how God would allow not one stone to be left upon another, and they come to him and they say, "Master, tell us, when are these things going to be? When is the end of the world coming?" And Jesus begins to go through these various signs of his coming, also signs of the destruction of Jerusalem. He blends the two together in mercy to the disciples. He knows that they're not ready and cannot fathom the idea that the temple would be destroyed at any time other than when Jesus came. And he comes to the end of Matthew 24. And I want to read verses 42 through 44 of Matthew 24. There's lots in Matthew 24 that we're familiar with and that we could go over, but we're not going to look at. I want to get into Matthew 25. But Jesus says here, "Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the goodman of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh." Jesus tells us here that we are to watch, right? Watch because we do not know what hour our Lord comes. Watch. And then he says in verse 44, we are to watch, and what does it say? Be ready, doesn't it? Watch and be ready. Now, sometimes we say that we need to get ready. Jesus actually did not say, get ready. Now, in early writings, the angel says, get ready, get ready, get ready. But Jesus uses a different wording. Jesus says, be ready. What's the difference between get ready and be ready?
Get ready, you're not ready.
Okay.
One's preparation.
One's preparation.
There.
If you are getting ready, that means you are not ready. Now, both are relevant, aren't they? Because if we're not ready, what do we need to do? We need to get ready, don't we? And that's why the angel says, get ready, get ready, get ready. But be ready has a different connotation, doesn't it? So if you get ready, that means that you need to, you're not ready and you need to get some things done, doesn't it? What does be ready mean?
Stay in a state of readiness.
You're in a state of readiness, aren't you?
Stay there. Stay there.
So if you have said be ready, that means that not only have you gotten ready, but you are staying ready, aren't you? And that was what Jesus said. Therefore, be ye also ready. For in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. You know, I think of being ready. Think of sometimes, it hasn't happened recently, but we have a thing in our home where they keep track of whose turn it is for a daddy day. And sometimes I've said, okay, I'm going to come home from work, be ready. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be getting home because I don't know who's going to be coming to my office and I don't know what might be going on. And so sometimes I might be early, sometimes I might be late, not normally not early, but just say, when I come home I only have this much time, so don't get ready. Be ready. That means the shoes are on, right? The coat's on if it's cold outside. And I can remember sometimes coming home and there they are. They're not just getting ready. They're waiting outside ready. Be ready. And isn't that the idea that Jesus wants for us? I'm coming. You don't know when I'm coming. Be ready. Be waiting. Be waiting with anticipation. Be waiting with eagerness. Be ready. So he says in Matthew 24, he gives the various signs, talks about the manner of Jesus coming, and then he comes to a conclusion basically and says, be ready. How are we to be ready? I believe that Jesus is then going to explain how we need to be ready in Matthew 25. So in Matthew 24, Jesus is telling us the signs and